I'm Ashley and I'm going to talk you through how to deal with damaged insect specimens. Now, these kinds of collections are very fragile by nature, so occasionally you'll come across broken specimens, or a specimen might even break during the handling process. But don't panic. The main thing to do is make sure that you keep the fragment associated with the main specimen. Now, we can do this through two ways. We can either glue the fragment if the piece is big enough, or we could keep it in a gelatin capsule and keep that associated by pinning it underneath the specimen. So I'm going to do that just now. And the way that you can pick up your fragment is either with a fine paintbrush or with fine forceps. Paintbrushes work quite nicely. You can do it with a dry brush, and it's a really nice, delicate touch. So I would give it a go with a paintbrush first. You just need a dry brush. Then you want to choose an adequately sized pill capsule, open it up, and gently just push down over this fragment here, and it will lift it up in the bristles. Pop it into the gelatin capsule and pop that lid back on. So these are great because they will allow access to this fragment in the future. And it can be pinned underneath the specimen. Like so. So that fragment will be kept with the specimen. So if you are going to attempt gluing a specimen, then it's really important that you use the right kind of adhesive. In the past, curators would have used secatine, and this is also called fishy glue. It's made from animal products, so we avoid using this in the collections now. It just adds another layer of deliciousness for pests to feed on. So we would use Evercorn R, which is conservation grade glue. It's great because it dries hard and clear, and it's also water soluble, so this can be reversed at any point. So if you do encounter any loose specimens or fragments rattling around in the bottom of your drawer or store box, it's really important that you don't try to make any repairs on these unless you can be absolutely certain of the association, so which specimen those fragments originated from. The last thing you want to be doing is gluing a head on the wrong body. You could end up really confusing potential collection users in the future, and this has actually happened before, where one of our volunteers was scratching his head for ages because the specimen he was looking at had the wrong head on the body. Many old specimens have been preserved on poor quality pins, so sometimes the pins bend or break, and there sometimes may no longer be a point at the end of the pin, so it doesn't go nicely into the plastozote. This problem can be dealt with by restaging the specimen, but when doing this, always ensure that the labels remain in exactly the same order as on the original pin. So with older collections, you may sometimes encounter waxy green substances coming off the pins, and this is verdigris. It's the result of the pins being made of brass or other copper alloys, so it's reacted with the moisture in the insect's body and is corroding. So obviously this isn't great for the specimens themselves. The verdigris in extreme cases can grow through the body of the specimen and even sometimes break the specimen in two. So it's really important that this is tended to quickly. Fortunately, the development of this verdigris is arrested when the environmental conditions are stable, but in any extreme cases, it should be dealt with quickly. So in some cases, it's just a small amount of verdigris coming off the top of the pin here, and this can be brushed off with a fine paintbrush. And the specimen monitored just to check that the verdigris doesn't develop any further. So in really extreme cases, sometimes pin replacement is required. A couple of things to keep in mind for this is that the hole that the original pin will leave can sometimes be a bit larger, so if you can use the next size up pin, that will help prevent any swiveling of the specimen on its new pin. Other things to consider is keeping those labels, those original data labels, in the exact order in which you've removed them. Really important. That's providing a timeline, a history of the specimen, so we must keep them in the same order. It's also really helpful for future curators to let them know that you have repinned a specimen and keep that original pin with the specimen if possible. So you can do this by adding the original pin to a small piece of plastozote and keeping that underneath the specimen, underneath those data labels. You can even include a small label of your own to say that that you repinned it and the year that you repinned it in. Something else that you might encounter with historical specimens is something like this, where you have transparent hexagonal crystals forming on the body or the wings of the specimens. And this is from previous exposure to a chemical called naphthalene. And this was previously used as a deterrent to keep away pests within insect collections, but unfortunately can often result in these deposits. What you can do is you can leave the specimens to ventilate. Usually this should be done under a fume hood, a really well ventilated space. And of course, if you are going to be doing this, you need to think about preventing physical damage to the specimens whilst they're in this vulnerable state with the lid off. And of course, following any integrated pest management procedures once the drawer has been left exposed for a while.